So I've had many questions about how I arrived at the $8 billion figure that the city of Los Angeles would be liable for if they were found to be responsible for the murders of Tupac and Biggie. Now, simply put, I figured that each of these men would have earned $1 billion in their lifetimes. So therefore, any wrongful death suits brought against the city of Los Angeles would have been asking for damages in those amounts. And I got that number based on looking at similar artists. Sean Combs is currently worth $855 million. Jay-Z is currently worth $930 million. And Dr. Dre is currently worth $820 million. But let's look at some numbers from the artists themselves. Yaman Crystal, in her suit against the city of Los Angeles, said there is a $363 million loss of earnings claim against the city of Los Angeles for the murder of Christopher Wallace, aka the notorious B.I.G. So this original claim was filed in 2002, and if it's filed today, the claim would be much higher. So to figure out how much more a new lawsuit should be filed for, we turn to, yeah, you guessed it, the Big Mac Index. Get it? Big. So back in 2002, the price of a Big Mac meal was just under $3. Today, you'll need $6 for the same meal. So 726 million is the correct number that Biggie should be looking for today. So let's look at his album sales over the years. Ready to Die sold 6 million copies. Life After Death sold 11 million copies. Born Again sold 2 million copies. Duets, The Final Chapter, sold 1 million copies. And the notorious B.I.G.'s Greatest Hits sold 10 million copies, for a grand total of 30 million copies of albums sold. Now, we don't know how many more albums the notorious B.I.G. or the big man had in front of him, but let's assume he has as many in front of him as behind him had he lived, so that would be an additional 30 million copies. Would he have invested his money? If so, that fortune would have grown. Would he have created clothing lines or other products? Endorsements, appearing as a featured artist or on other artists' songs, speaking engagements, personal appearances, movies, as an actor, providing songs for the soundtrack. So it isn't a stretch to claim that the lifetime earnings of the notorious B.I.G. could have reached as high as $1 billion. Now, Tupac is much easier to justify $1 billion or more. His music career was going well, and he was also an actor. He wanted to move into more creating and distributing his own content. So let's look at his album sales. Tupacalypse Now, 500,000 copies. Thug Life, Volume 1, 500,000 copies. Me Against the World, 2 million copies. All Eyes on Me, 10 million copies. The Don Killuminati, The 7-Day Theory, 4 million copies. Are You Still Down, 4 million copies. Still I Rise, 1 million copies. Until the End of Time, 4 million copies. Better Days, 3 million. Loyal to the Game, 1 million copies. Pac's Life, 500,000 copies. Greatest Hits, 10 million copies, for a total of 41,500,000 albums sold. Now, Tupac currently has 93 credits for his music being used in movies. Add to that his acting career in Juice, Poetic Justice, Above the Rim, Gridlocked, and Gang Related. Now, we don't know how many more albums he had in him, but let's assume that he had as many in front of him as behind him. Again, another 41,500,000 copies. And Tupac, too, we know, would have invested his money. He would have created other products. He would have had endorsements. He would have been a featured artist on other songs. And for sure, he would have had speaking engagement, personal appearances, and many, many more movies. So he would have been an actor providing songs for the soundtracks. He would have also been acting in the movies. And he would have moved into management, owning his own record label and his own movie company. So in the case of Tupac, it could be much higher than $1 billion that he could have earned in his lifetime. And so $1 billion for Biggie, $1 billion for Tupac, and then we have what's called punitive damages. Punitive damages are applied in cases to punish a defendant. Now, not all cases get awarded punitive damages, but there is always that possibility, especially in a wrongful death suit, that if a defendant is found liable for a wrongful death, they could be punished by the court up to 3 times the award. So if there was an award of $1 billion in Biggie's case and $1 billion in Tupac's case, that's a total of $2 billion, plus triple that amount, which is another $6 billion. And so that's where the $8 billion figure comes from. And so that's why this is potentially an $8 billion problem for the city of Los Angeles and the LAPD if Reggie Wright Jr. and LAPD officers were found guilty of conspiring to kill rappers Biggie Smalls and Tupac Shakur.